Good day everyone and welcome back to the channel. So new kind of setup, playing around with different setups to see how it goes. But today we're going to be reviewing and discussing One Piece chapter 1023, which is the new one titled Spitting Image. Just interesting. We also got a new extra chapter with Vivi. I won't be covering that though. But this chapter starts off with a cover page, and it is Vivi playing with what seems to be some birds. So nothing too over the top. And then we jump straight into King and Queen versus Zoro, and we get basically Zoro and Sanji standing after they delivered the blow to King and Queen last chapter, and we see King and Queen just lying there, and Chopper is surprised that the medicine actually worked on Zoro. Then we see one of the gifters, or is it a pleasure? One of Kaido's crewmates takes a shot at Zoro, and when he's about to fire, Kawamatsu comes in and cuts him down. And then we see Hyogoro telling everyone, do not interrupt in this fight, whether you're ally or enemy, don't let anyone interfere with this fight. Leave Zoro and Sanji to deal with King and Queen. That's theirs, don't interfere. We then see Marco, and he's just like, because he's like, what do you mean atop the red light? So he just zones out and he's thinking of something Whitebeard told him back in the day. And this is to do with some village or some race that lived on the red line before. So while he's spaced out and like scratching his beard, wondering what's going on, someone takes shots at him and Izo comes in to save him, which is good. And Izo is like, why are you spacing out? And Marco is like, well, I knew you would save me, so it's okay if I space out. This then leads to King and Queen getting up, and they get up from the slash and the kick that Zoro and Sanji gave them last chapter, and it seems that it didn't affect them whatsoever. And we have Queen saying that basically we're called the lead performers, or well, that's the official translation. We're called the lead performers for a reason. We're called the drought, the plague, the wildfire, and these three calamities are because we protect Kaido. We are the strongest, so that's good. So then push over. So we see how durable Queen is because he's been fighting for a while. So he readies a hyper beam again, and Zoro looks at Sanji as he's dodging it, and Zoro is like, "What's up with you?" Because Sanji seems a bit out of it, and Sanji says, "Well, I don't know what it is, but ever since I put on this raid suit, my body has been feeling a bit off. Well, at least the second time he put on the raid suit, his body has been feeling a bit off." So Zoro, the little banter between them, Zoro is like, "Well, don't drag me down." And Sanji's like, "I didn't say it felt bad, just weird." Then we see King looking at them, and Zoro again with the banter is like, "What is it, your eyebrow?" And Sanji's like, "No, you idiot, it's my body." And King goes in for a strike. He goes in for the strike. Something that's weird. Zoro actually comes to save Sanji, because we know he probably would have left him in the past to defend himself. But Zoro saves him and says that, you owe me one. And then Queen seems to be using a new attack where his hair is on fire. I think it's Bridal Claw. Or either on fire or he hacked up his hair and the claw. And he goes for Zoro, but Sanji comes in and saves Zoro and says, "No, we're even." So there's that. And this leads to an interesting conversation, because when Sanji kicks away Queen's hair, which is flaming like, Queen says, "Well, you must be one of Judge's cyborg children to create fire from your legs like that." But Sanji says, "No, I'm just a human." So that has us thinking now, well, we saw his other brothers had powers and they were cyborgs or enhanced. So why does Sanji is supposed to be the one that the experiments failed on? So we have questions as to how come his legs could be on fire. And then the past Oda has said it's his passion burning, but this leads to something interesting now, because Queen says, does a human burn like that? I know you're not a Lunarian. So this is probably, or is the race that was on the red line. But when he says you're probably not a Lunarian, or I know you're not a Lunarian, we get a glimpse at King's face. So maybe that's what King's race is and why he has the fire on his back and can create fire. So we'll discuss that a bit after. But this just leads to Sanji getting fired up and he starts hitting Queen with a barrage of kicks. And he says, I'm good at cooking sea creatures. And we see Queen blocking this attack this time, but this time he has his hand hakied up. I don't think we've seen Queen use haki yet. We then cut to Zoro and King, and Zoro clashes with King, but there's something different about this clash, because King's sword kinda detaches on the end like a comb, how it has the splits between a comb, and then he traps Zoro's two swords in it and it closes and he throws it away. And he punches Zoro with his flaming fist, it seems, but Zoro blocks it with his sword in his mouth. So that's interesting. And Zoro says, you know what? You're right. I never heard you said that you're a swordsman. You never said you were a swordsman. Because King says, fighting fair or to one style is kind of old school. So Zoro's like, well, you know what? Do as you like, but by the end of this, I might be tearing your throat out with my teeth. Because I need to do anything I can to ensure I win this fight. So we then cut to Kawamatsu and Hyogoro having a discussion. And this discussion is, they're watching Zoro and King clash, and while watching this, they're saying that Zoro reminds them a lot of Ushimaru, who's a descendant of Shimosuke Ryuma. And also Ryuma was a one-eyed samurai, like Zoro. So more calls or nods at Zoro actually being a descendant of Ryuma, maybe. Especially with the one-eye thing. I don't think Oda would just do that out of the blue. So we have that. We then cut away from Zoro again and cut to Inuarashi and Jack, and this is the first time we've seen Jack's hybrid form. So he's basically fully mammoth from the legs down, so his legs are mammoth. I assume he has the tail, but his upper body is human. He has the tusks and the trunk, but his arms are normal and he's using his swords. And he's clashing with Inuarashi, and Inuarashi pulls his trunk and throws him through a wall. And when he throws him through the wall, he throws him into, I guess, an open area. And he transforms into his Sulong form. So we get a clear view of his Sulong form here. Of course, there's a back and forth between Jack and Inuarashi, but nothing overly important there. We then cut now to Perospero and Nekomamushi, and we see Nekomamushi has slapped Perospero and sent him all the way outside of the Skull Dome where the life wall was, and they're outside, and this is where we get to see Neko's Sulong as well, because he transforms and he says basically he's going to take out Perospero. So we cut away from that again, and then we see just little glimpses of soldiers fighting. We see Raizo and Fukurokujo fighting, and just a bit more talking, kinda, like, don't mock us, we're good entertainers, we're going to win this for Wano, that kind of thing. But what we get next is the big part of the chapter, and that is we get a double page spread and we see Momo appears in front of Luffy as a big aged dragon. I'll throw a picture up on this. Someone colored it on Twitter. The tag is actually in the picture, so check out their art. The color panel is really good as well. But yeah, we get this big panel of Momo appearing in front of Luffy, and he looks just like Kaido. Of course, a pink version. And we see Law's men are telling Luffy to look out because they mistake it for Kaido. And they're shocked that this is Momo, because they're like, what is that? Is that the same kid? Then we get a little glimpse of Shinobu telling Luffy what happened, basically that she aged Momo up. And we get a panel with Shinobu holding on to Momo's hand saying, you look just like the chapter. Well, not the chapter, but the panel doesn't show Momo, it shows a silhouette of his arm. And basically this leads to Luffy telling Momo, alright Momo, come on, let's head back to Wano. So this is where I'm going to assume Momo steps up to the plate. He may get his sword back now from Hiyori, because she may have been the one that saved the scabbards before, so she may have this sword and give it to him to fight Kaido. And I'm going to assume, because the chapter ends here, so theory portion now I guess, I'm going to assume that what happens is that Momo and Luffy, when they defeat Kaido, more than likely Kaido's flame clouds will disappear, and this is when Momo steps up to the plate and uses his flame clouds to hold up Onigashima and move it back. So there's that. Now back to Sanji. Sanji was hinted at being either enhanced or something to that effect. Maybe we'll get more clarification on what exactly causes this fire, but maybe since Vegapunk was able to take Kaido's lineage factor and create a mock devil fruit that was exactly his for Momo, and that's what Momo ate by mistake, of course. I'm assuming maybe Judge was able to do this and he got the lineage factor from a Lunarian and spliced it with Sanji's DNA, and that's maybe why Sanji could control fire or create fire, and not just his legs, because we know hell memories, he bursts into flames. So maybe that's why, and that's why his other kids are maybe spliced with other species from the One Piece world that give them their power. So there's that. So yeah, and lastly on the Zoro front now, Zoro is basically a descendant of Ryuma. I'm going to assume based on all this revelation and looking like them and bringing the sword back to Wano. There's too much tying Zoro to Wano for him to not be a descendant of somebody important in Wano. So hopefully we get that revelation as well. But I feel like we'll save the Zoro revelation maybe for the end of Wano, and we may get Sanji's revelation as his fight with Queen progresses, since Queen is a scientist. But yeah, I really loved this chapter. There was a lot in it, especially that scene with Momo. Loved that. Especially love seeing Neko and Inu as well in their full Sulong, getting to see Jack in his hybrid, Queen in his hybrid. Doing this hybrid we haven't seen yet is King, but I'm sure we'll get that soon. So yeah, all in all, really good chapter. I enjoyed it. We have no break next week, so that's really good. So we'll get to see some more intense action, hopefully. And I'll see you all for that one next week.